cyclone is bringing huge winds to our region, toppling trees onto homes and cars all over the Pacific Northwest.
Nearly 500,000 people are without power.
It seems like weekly we were reminded about how devastating and powerful Mother Nature can be. But if you're here, you're either aware of the potential for disaster coming into your doorstep, or you're interested in stepping out into Mother Nature and equipping yourself with the tools and skills necessary to survive. So regardless of your purpose, let's dive into the 5 essential survival skills that everyone should know. If you're familiar with survival, make sure you drop a comment below and maybe tell us about a survival skill or tool that you've found essential. In the outdoor and survival world, there's a lot of little catchphrases and monikers that will really help you remember a lot of this information. And one of them is the rule of 3. The rule of 3 is a quick reference on helping you remember how to prioritize your tasks in a emergency situation or even through hike or camping. Now the rule of 3 suggests that you can survive 3 hours without shelter, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. Now these are the max. It's definitely not something that you want to push those limits on. Now I know you're probably thinking 3 hours without shelter seems a little ridiculous, but I know obviously we're not talking about 60 degrees and sunny. We're talking more inclement weather, wet weather. You know, it doesn't have to be freezing outside. If it's raining, it doesn't have to be freezing outside for you to get hypothermia. Hypothermia just means your body drops below its standard temperature. So, and we'll get into more of that in a future video, but just the rules of 3 helps you prioritize. Okay, I gotta find shelter, gotta find water, and then you gotta find food. So going down the list of 3s, the first skill set is shelter. Now I'm sure when you think of shelter, the first things you think of are things like tents or a little tarp overhang, or maybe a lean-to built out of sticks and leaves in the middle of the woods, and that's certainly the case. And those are important skill sets to build and learn. However, for the sake of this video, I also want you to consider shelter as proper clothing for the potential weather. Clothing is that first layer of shelter from the elements. If you don't have the proper clothing to protect your skin and your body from the outside elements, you can get into a dangerous situation very quickly. So just know that shelter is not just about carrying a tent around with you no matter where you're going. If you're going to the park for a day to go swimming and it's a cool fall day or something like that, make sure you have proper clothes. Make sure that you have a change of clothes or a towel or something to dry you off, to get you out of that cold, wet clothes, to allow your body temperature to continue to stay where it should be in that homeostasis. If you are doing a day hike somewhere, check the temperature range of the hike. I mean, I know there's certain areas of the country and certain areas of the world where it can be 65 degrees at one second, and then if the weather rolls in, it can drop down to 30. So make sure you have a proper clothing to keep you warm and keep you dry. Our next skill set is fire building. Now it's kind of a bridge between shelter and water. Why? Because fire can both keep you warm. It obviously can help you cook your food, but it could also help you boil water to make it safe for drinking. Starting a fire is an essential survival skill that every human being should know. Whether you enjoy hiking, camping, or just have a general survival interest, it is something that we all should know. And starting fire is not just about knowing that you need tinder, kindling, and fuel. And it's certainly not as easy as just putting a lighter to a log or rubbing 2 sticks together. As a matter of fact, there are many professionals out there that struggle with starting a fire, especially in less than ideal conditions, like if it's been raining outside for a while and most of the wood is wet. Fire is a critical skill to help keep you warm. It'll help keep you safe by warding off those predators. You can build fires for signaling, and then you can also build that fire to boil the water and make water safe to drink. Now, we'll go into the fire building a little bit more. There's a ton of videos out there, so check those out. Just know, the rule of thumb, again, kind of that aligned with the 3s. You have tinder, about as much as you can fit in your hand, kindling, as much as you can fit in your arms, and then fuel generally about up to your knee. Again, depending on how long you plan on staying there, but that's kind of the start from the basis. Water is imperative. As we mentioned, you can go 3 days max without water, but if you've ever gone long enough without water, you know it sucks. Even after a day, you can start cramping. It affects your brain, your thought processing. You process things slower. Your dexterity in your fingers, since your hands are cramping up, it just affects everything. So you definitely want to prioritize finding water once you have proper shelter. Now, water is one of those, if you've done this before, if you're a little bit more skilled, you understand how much water, as much as it's important and as much as you need it, it sucks, especially when you're hiking. At 8.33 pounds per gallon, it's just not fun to carry with you. So that's why you need to have some sort of way to gather and just know the area, know where your potential water sources will be. But obviously you do need to carry that water in. And at least the silver lining is, as you drink it, it does get lighter. When it comes to water, whether it's hiking, camping, or emergency preparedness, I like to go about it with like a 3-prong approach. The first prong being immediate access. Depending on your situation, Camelback, it could be water that you bring in with you through jugs or stored jugs, water bottles, something. You need to have immediate safe drinking water then and there. Now, the second prong is mobile purification. This is something I want to be able to grab the water and go and purify it on the move. And whether that is purification tablets, a Sawyer mini filter, LifeStraw, it's just got to be something where I can purify while I'm moving and I don't have to stop for a prolonged period of time to make that water safe to drink. And it is really more, in a hiking, camping situation, it's going to be your backup to what you bring in immediate access. Now, this is typically a finite system. Those tablets are going to run out. Those filters are going to get eventually clogged up, or they have a max life. I know it's a lot, but it's a finite amount of water that can purify. Now, the third prong is going to be more for long-term survival, and that is, so it's not so much about hiking, camping, but it's being able to collect and gather water, purify that water with knowing how to filter it yourself. Without the use of like a LifeStraw or Sawyer Mini or something like that, or a Berkey, where those filters are going to expire or have a max life. So being able to collect, gather, filter, and make that water safe. So that's more of like emergency preparedness, disaster preparedness, sort of stuff. So if you're interested in those sort of videos, I'm certainly happy to go into emergency preparedness and prepping, if you will. So make sure you drop a comment below if you're interested in those, and we can do some sort of video series on prepping as well. Now, the next is basic navigation. I know we have phone, right? There's maps, GPS. It is a ultimate navigational tool when things work. There's a lot of different hacks that you can do with like downloading offload maps, and we'll get into more of that. But there's times, cell phone batteries die, signals lost. You need to know how to navigate, how to read a paper map. You need to suggest having a paper map with you. You need to know how to, which way is north, south, east, west. You need to identify and be able to do that when you no longer have access to your phone, when you no longer have access to a GPS. I mean, I have a GPS on my watch, right? But it's, again, batteries die, signals get lost. So just having that basic navigational skill to know how to identify a general direction, how to read a map, and how to get from A to B without the use of technology will be could potentially be a life or death skill. So learn how to do it. attend a basic navigational skills class. I guarantee you won't regret it. Our last skill set is emergency preparedness. Now this is more of a generalized umbrella term I'm using because that's ultimately going to be decided why you're here, why you're watching this video. You know, you're watching for a reason, and that reason is going to dictate what emergency could potentially mean. That being said, there are a few general points to always consider regardless of the emergency. The first one is to remain calm.
This is fine.
Freaking out and getting all worked up is going to do much more harm than good. So when you find yourself in an emergency, you know, just remember to breathe, remember to look around, don't get tunnel vision, and analyze the situation and pick a plan and act on it. If anyone's familiar with military acronyms, this is your OODA loop, which stands for observe, orient, decide, and act. It's a constant loop that we are maintaining situational awareness, what's around you, and constantly just analyzing that information for making the best decision. The next general emergency situation point I would consider is just general first aid. I know in a lot of our cozy sanitary lives, you know, a simple cut doesn't really mean anything. We just throw a band-aid on it and go about our day. But in a survival situation, if you're out in the woods, that cut, that could be the difference between life and death. So knowing how to clean the cut, cover it, and just general first aid skill set could really mean the difference between surviving and not. So first aid is certainly something. There's a lot of first aid classes out there, a lot of first aid videos out there. Educate yourself on first aid. It literally could be a lifesaver. And speaking of first aid, this is not so much as a skill set as more of a tool, but a first aid kit. That's something I always have a first aid kit not far from me, and regardless of the situation, because it could mean the difference between life and death, or just general not enjoying a situation. If you're on a vacation hiking somewhere and you have a blister and you're just not enjoying that hike and you spent all that money to be there, it's just not fun. So why not take the time to put in a small first aid kit that'll allow you to address some of those issues. But again, it's gonna, first aid, what you're gonna need, what skill set you need for those is really ultimately gonna depend on where you are and what activities you're doing. So just take some time and think about what potentially could go wrong and how you can address that. Now I do have a bonus skill here, and that is one that I think is often overlooked, and that is physical fitness. Just like I urge you to practice these skills before you need them, like the first time you learn to build a fire shouldn't be the first time you need a fire to survive. Practice these skills, and physical fitness is no different than that. I understand there's search and rescue teams and there's emergency response teams, but they shouldn't be your first line of defense. Your knowledge, your skill set that you have in here, as well as your physical fitness, should be what you rely on first. Because it doesn't matter how much you practice or how much gear you have. It's not going to mean shit if you can't walk up a flight of stairs without being out of breath. So hit the gym, get a walk in, do something. Your body was meant and made to move. It loves to move. Go out and love your body. Move, enjoy it, get some walks in, something. Just be active. I appreciate you watching this video. I have a whole agenda of different videos coming out in the near future, so make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss those. But if you're new to camping, outdoors, hiking, survival, whatever it is, drop a comment below. Tell me what maybe is the biggest challenge or the biggest fear. I really want this channel to be able to empower people to get out, enjoy nature, and just not be afraid to enjoy the outdoors. Really get out of our comfort zone of the couch or the computer chair and enjoy the beautiful world that we live in. And even if you're a skilled hunter or outdoorsman or outdoorswoman, or whatever it is, you can always learn something. I've found that everybody has different perspectives and ideas, and it's great to share those. And I want this channel really to be about that, just sharing knowledge and interacting and just really expanding our minds and just empowering each other to get out and enjoy nature, go on those hikes, go camping, and just escape those comfort zones. So again, thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and God bless. Make sure you like and subscribe for more in-depth content. Now let's Make sure you like and subscribe for more in-depth content from all.